Good morning. Oh, excuse me. I still have a little morning tickle in my throat. Um, all right, we are live and recording, and I think we're probably just going to get started today, right at 10 o'clock. I'm excited for today. It's really fun to listen to all the other, well, the three other incredible women host these calls, and then to pop in myself every once in a while. So I am Amanda Kingsley. I'm actually over in the chilly side of the country in Massachusetts. It's beautiful and sunny out today. My daughter's headed out to snowboard for the first time. We'll probably go play in the backyard. And I'm excited to share with you today. We host this call every Monday, and the four of us come together and just share what we've learned. We share what we have gathered in our time as entrepreneurs and women and businesswomen, and we just sort of regurgitate that back for you to listen to. And sometimes that perspective might be just what you need to allow the information to soak in. So thank you. I'm going to just give a shout out thank you to the three other women who host this call with me. It's been a lot of fun. Um, and today I'm going to do a lot of regurgitating. So today I'm going to talk about thoughts. I'm going to talk about how our thoughts affect our life. And this work has been so central to me and my growth. Our thoughts really do control our lives. And a lot of us have heard that. It's something we've talked about on other Mindset Monday calls. But what does it mean and what do we do about it, right? So it's one thing to know that to be true. And it's another thing to say, well, now what? Now what do I do? How do I control my thoughts so that I get the results that I want? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Um, Much of the work that I've done has sunk in little bits and pieces. And what I'm going to share today mostly is where some of the most powerful um, shifts have come for me in terms of thought work. And most of that work has come from a woman named Brooke Castillo. And she's very open about her own work and her own process and where she has pulled her teachings from. And she's sort of done that from a combination of her mentors and leaders, some being Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, Abraham, Martha Beck, some really powerful people in the world, Tony Robbins, Pema Chodron. And she's really clear about the fact that there's these ideas out in the world, there's these knowings, there's these truths, and we all sort of absorb them and then we regurgitate them in different ways. And she's come up with from her work and her experience with these mentors, she's come up with one of, I think, the most powerful self-coaching models in terms of thought work. And so my hope for you by the end of this 30-minute call is that you have a better sense of what it means to take back control of your thoughts and why it matters, a better understanding of why it matters. How do our thoughts influence our actions? And so I found Brooke Castillo in her podcast called The Life Coach School that was recommended to me. I started listening. I listened to it for many, many, many months, at least 6 months, before I purchased her book and I actually joined her program. And I thought that I was absorbing so much from her podcast. I thought, how could there be more? Right? Like, this is so powerful and so influential for me. And so much content. How could there be more? Right? What's the next level? And what I really discovered was that in joining her program, it forced me to do the work. And so we listen to things like these Mindset Monday calls, or we listen to podcasts or TED Talks or trainings, and we don't then implement the work. And there's such a massive difference in how effective something is when we do the work. And so I'm going to actually do some work with you on this call today after I sort of outline her process. but definitely get a pen and paper if you don't already have one. There's certainly some powerful things in here, but I do want to just touch base quickly why she believes self-coaching is so powerful, and I'm actually going to pull this part right directly from her book. Her book is called Self-Coaching 101: Use Your Mind, Don't Let It Use You. And again, it's Brooke Castillo. Um, and so in her book, she's I'm just going to read this right out of self-coaching. She says the self-coaching model is based on the following truths. So the first truth is that we cannot control the world. I'm actually not going to read because I just want to add a little something to each one. So that we cannot control the world, right? Things happen to us. Car accidents happen. People get sick. Um, good and bad things happen to us. We cannot control the world, and we do need to understand though that even though things like the law of attraction are true, things happen, right? Things happen, so we can't always control the world we're in, but we can control our thoughts about it. And so the next thing she writes here is that nothing outside of us has the power to make us feel good or bad. This is really powerful because her whole model is that nothing outside of us defines us, right? So someone calling us a hateful name does not give, there's no power there. It doesn't have the power to make us feel good or bad when someone either compliments us or maybe perhaps sends sort of some negative, hateful comment our way. What controls how we feel is us and our thoughts about that comment. And when we can understand that, we take back control, right? Because no one can say or do anything that takes away our power. We always have control of the situation. All right, and the next bullet point she has here is it's not the circumstances, but our thoughts about the circumstances that create our experience. So that's sort of what I just mentioned. The next bullet she has here is that we attract what we think about. And that's the law of attraction, which we've talked about on this Monday call. Amy did a great job talking about that. So really powerful stuff. The next bullet point is emotions are vibrations and they lead to action. And when I dig into her work, you're really going to understand how our thoughts create our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results. And we're going to be able to take back control of our thoughts so that in the end, when it filters through our feelings and our actions, we then get the results that we want. There's a couple more bullet points here. One is that we can't permanently change our results without permanently changing our thoughts. So there's times where we might be able to tweak a result, perhaps have a thought and you know, just the way things happen and we don't have control. Sometimes things do work out where they shift, but they're always going to shift back into place if our foundation is the same thought. So we have to change our thoughts to get permanent results in our life. So when we're talking about network marketing, maybe there's a day or two where we just rock it. We send out great invites and we do great follow-up. Maybe we sign someone up. We add a new team member. We train a new team member. And that's probably based on the fact that we were having good thoughts that day that created good actions. But unless we keep controlling those thoughts, keep maintaining those action-oriented thoughts in the direction that we want, we fall back to the same routines. So we have to permanently change our thoughts to maintain actions that get us to where we want to go. The next one here is we don't have to get anything to feel better. We can feel better right now. And the classic for those of us in the network marketing profession here is when I make the big bucks, right? When I have the money, when the income is streaming in, when I have a big team, it will all be easier. And that is not true. It just changes. What changes when we feel better is when we change our thoughts about those things. And I'm going to get really specific about this in just a minute. There's just one more point here she makes on the self-coaching model and being able to take control of our thoughts. And that is that being conscious and choosing our thoughts are the most important components to feeling better. So we've kind of covered that. All right, that's actually all I'm going to cover out of her book directly. But I hope at this point that it's starting to make some sense as to why our thoughts are so important. Now, there's a few things that we really need to understand before we run through some examples of how this works so that you can really see it and understand it. One of those things is that we can only work with one thought at a time. So you can't do the self-coaching work. You can't run what she calls the model, which I'm going to teach you the model. You can't run the model on more than one thought at a time. So what's really important for us when we're in any place, and this can go for when we're in a really tough, challenging space, or when we're really in a really exciting, motivated place. But we want to do a thought download. We want to just take a minute or two and dump our thoughts on a piece of paper. Just dump them out. It's a thought download. People use thought downloads for all different reasons. The way we're going to use them is that we're going to dump all our thoughts down and we're going to choose one to work with. And we can only work with one thought at a time. So you can't work with more than one thing at the same time without it getting muddled and confusing. You want to break it down to its simplest parts to be able to really change the thoughts and do the work. So anytime you want to do this work, I want you to do a thought download and choose one thought at a time to work with. And this is when things really started shifting for me, because I was listening to her podcast. And I understood the concept that our thoughts create our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results. But I wasn't actually writing. I wasn't doing the writing because I kept thinking in my head. My ego kept telling me, you got it. This makes sense. But until I started writing it down, pen to paper, it wasn't really shifting for me. I had to do the work, and everything started clicking in a whole new way when I started writing things out. All right, so the basic components of the thought model are that we have a circumstance, and the circumstance creates a thought, and the thought creates a feeling, the feeling creates an action, the action creates a result. Now, the most important thing to understand about the circumstance is that it has to be neutral. It has to be a fact, right? So for instance, a circumstance wouldn't be, my business isn't growing. That's not a circumstance. The circumstance is I have a business, right? It's just a fact. Some people might argue your business is growing. If you're doing the work and just not getting the results, you're laying a foundation, which is part of the growth. There's too many variables when you get into circumstances that are really just thoughts. They're really opinions. So like a circumstance we would use is I have a new business. I am married. The roads are icy. Not the roads are icy and dangerous. Once you add dangerous, you're talking about things that are relative, right? It might not be dangerous to someone who has studded snow tires and a great truck. They might be dangerous to someone in an old front-wheel drive vehicle. Here I am talking in snow and winter talk, which my Minnesota people will also understand. But basically, when you do this work, you want to make sure that your circumstances are neutral facts. A few other things. When you come to your feeling, you want to make sure that your feeling is one word. So if you're coming up with more than one feeling, you might need to do more than one model. But make sure your feeling is one word. The result, when you do the model correctly, and I'm going to go through those for you. When you do the model correctly, the result is going to verify the thought. And I will show you exactly how that works. It might make more sense. But you might be off track if you get stuck and your results have nothing to do with your thoughts. And this is why some of this, even though it's self-coaching work, sometimes you need someone to work with at the beginning to make sure you're getting the groove right. Otherwise, it can feel like I'm doing it, but it's not really effective. So just check in with someone else who understands the work if you're feeling like it's not making sense as you go. All right, what else do I have here before I dig into some examples? So you can use this model to both shift negative or unproductive thoughts, or you can use it to up level your thoughts. So you can use it to shift something like the first thought I'm going to go through with you is something, because the chances are people who are listening to this call are in network marketing. So I'm going to go through some common network marketing thoughts. One is the product isn't perfect, right? The product isn't perfect. It's got some quirks. It still has some things that need to be worked out. So that would be a thought that is unproductive. But you can also use the model so that would be a place where you're using the model to correct something, to move in a productive way from an unproductive way. But if your thought were something like, this is the most incredible network marketing opportunity in existence, you were already thinking a positive thought, right? But now you can up level it and make it even better. So that's one thing I love about this model, is that you can use it both when you're in a bind, and you can use it when you're in a really good place, and it just solidifies and gets things moving even more. I'm not sure we'll have time to dig into that, because what I really want you to do is be able to shift your unproductive thoughts by the end of the call. But if we do have time, I will go back to that, how you can sort of up level your positive thoughts. And the very last thing before we dig into the thought models in more specific understanding is that you have to believe your thought. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a thought model on an unproductive thought. And then we're going to run a new model to change the thought and make it productive, right? But if I enter in a new thought, like I was just listening to a call of Denise's where she was talking about affirmations, and she said, you could say things like, I am a multimillionaire. But if your brain is immediately thinking that's a lie, no, I'm not, you're not going to get very far with that thought, right? Because you're immediately shutting it down yourself. So when we reapply the model, when we use the model to change an unproductive thought, the new thought we use has to be believable. Now, there's some ways you can tweak a sentence to make it believable. For instance, I am a multimillionaire. You can change that to say, it's possible I could become a multimillionaire. Or other people have proved that network marketing is a way to become a multimillionaire. Or I am open to believing that I will become a multimillionaire. Or I am open to believing that network marketing is a model that could bring me to becoming a multimillionaire. So there's some ways that you can tweak a sentence to make it shift from absolutely like feeling there's just like a big lie in your head to going like, you can just feel your body sort of shift a little. You're like, all right, I can believe it's possible that network marketing creates multimillionaires, or I know that other people do it. And so sometimes we have to make those sort of baby step shifts in our thoughts to get them to a point where they're feeling productive in our lives. All right, that's all my talk for today. So what I want to do next is dig into some examples, right? So I just chose some examples, and the work that I do with Brooke Castillo, I get this handy dandy little thought model pad. But basically what the pad, if you were looking at it, there's, if you say you're working on lined paper, I want you to take a line and write C, a line and write T, a line and write F, another line A, and the last line R. And then I personally add another line that says W. And so we just run down the line: circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result. And so I gave you the thought earlier that the product isn't perfect. So let's just say you're in a network marketing company, and there's a particular product in your product line that's amazing. It's incredible. It's getting people great results, but it's not perfect yet. It has some tweaks or kinks, or maybe the packaging is ugly, or sometimes it malfunctions, or right, nothing is perfect all the time. So let's just say there's a product in your company that kind of irks you because it doesn't really meet all of your expectations. So we're going to work with that thought for a second. So the circumstance is that you represent a product, or a product exists, or this product is a part of my company. So again, all of those things are non-negotiable. You have joined the company as a representative. You represent the product. The product is a part of your company. Those are just facts. It's just a truth that this product exists and it's a part of what you do. Now, the thought is the product isn't perfect. Now, when we have that thought, the feeling is kind of maybe embarrassment, right? And you might have a different feeling that comes up for you, but I'm just going to run the model in what I think would be a most likely situation. So maybe you really, really love 90% of the products in your company, but there's this one product that just irks you, and you get a little embarrassed when people stumble upon it. For instance, I was in a different company before the one I'm in currently, and there was a product that had one ingredient. The entire company was so pure, just pure and amazing and incredible. But there was one product that had one ingredient that just irked me. And so when someone would stumble into that product and ask about it, I would get embarrassed. I'd be like, oh, I know. It's like, I would have this moment of like, oh, I know this product is not perfect. And it would embarrass me. So that's the feeling that would come up for me when I recognized that the product wasn't perfect. And so the action I would take was certainly to not share that product. But with some people who I knew were super, super health conscious, I didn't even share the entire business or the entire product line, because I knew they would bump into this product and it would put me in a situation where I was embarrassed or felt like I had to explain. And so the action I took was to just either not share at all or not share that product. And so the result of me not sharing, because I was embarrassed, because I had this thought that the product isn't perfect, the result would be that not only does my team stay small, but the company stays small. This thing that I'm a part of is remaining small and isn't evolving, right? So if more and more people, as the company grew, if more and more people were aware of this, I'm just going to use the word imperfection in the product, the company would have the resources and the motivation to evolve, right? To grow, to shift out the ingredient, to up level the mechanics of the product. But if the company stays small and isn't growing, they're not going to put any effort into changing the product, because they're not actually producing results which will finance the change of a product. So me thinking the product isn't perfect, so now I'm not going to share it all, is actually reinforcing the fact that the product stays imperfect because the company stays small and the product doesn't evolve. Now, every product out there has gone through some evolution, whether it's network marketing product or not. I know that our iPhones right now are a disaster. Like, our messages are showing up in the wrong order. There's all kinds of tweaks and bugs, and they're slow. but we are all so loyal to the iPhone. Those of us who have been with the Apple products for a long time. And us sticking with them allows the product to evolve. It allows the company the resources it needs to shift and make the change. And that's what they do. It's what they've consistently done. And that's why we Apple users keep going back, because they keep fixing. We keep showing up and they keep fixing. And it works the very same way with your imperfect products. And so the final W line here, if you haven't listened to my Monday mindset call about the why, or any of my other life coaching work about the why, in my models, every time I run them, the last question I ask is this in alignment with my why? And so thinking the product isn't perfect is not in alignment with my why. It doesn't lead me to the freedom that I am aiming to get. And so now we have this model. If you wrote it down or you just listened, we have this model that doesn't work, right? It doesn't lead us to growth. It doesn't lead our company to growth. It's just kind of like unproductive, so much so that it's actually harmful. It's not getting us anywhere. It's not getting our company anywhere. And so the way we can change this is to run a new model with a new thought. And then if the model works out, gets us the results that we want, we need to start thinking that thought more, because that's the thought that's going to get us the results that we want. And so that we have the same exact situation, the same circumstance. You represent a product, or a product exists in your company line. But now, instead of thinking the product isn't perfect, you can think new products are almost never perfect, right? I gave the iPhone example. Imagine what the first iPhone looked like. I can't even imagine. I'm sure it wasn't perfect because it's evolved. And really, is there any perfection? Every single product, whether it's an herbal product, a supplement product, a makeup product, a bag product, it wasn't perfect when it started. It evolved based on the growth of the company and the growth of the interest in the product. And so the new thought you can have doesn't have to be, and wouldn't be effective if it were, this product is fine the way it is, or this product is perfect, right? Like those would just not feel true. So they wouldn't be effective. But instead you can think new products are almost never perfect. And so for me, that creates a new feeling, which is relief. Like, oh, phew, this product is just like every other new product out there. It still has room for growth. And that's a relief to me when I think that thought. Now, if this isn't the thought that creates a shift for you, you have to come up with a new thought that does create a shift. But for me, this thought creates relief. So now I'm on to a new feeling. So instead of embarrassment, I have relief. Like, phew, my company's normal, my product is normal, it's just still evolving. And so now the new action I take when I'm relieved and I'm thinking new products are almost never perfect is that I share the product, or I share the company, or I share the opportunity, because I'm not worried about the fact that it isn't perfect. I'm aware of the fact that new products are almost never perfect. And so I'm okay with it. I have relief, and then my action is to share, because I believe in the bigger vision. I believe in the other products in the company. And so the result is that not only do I grow, does my business grow, but I now am helping the product evolution move forward, right? I'm contributing to the growth of the greater vision by knowing that even though my product isn't perfect, me sharing is contributing to the evolution. So now my result is not only good for me, it's good for the bigger whole. It's good for the bigger vision. And so I ask myself, is this in alignment with my why? And it most definitely is. So now, if it were a day where I had set aside an hour or 2 hours to work my business, sitting down and thinking the product isn't perfect is not going to lead me to an effective 2 hours. If a place that I'm stuck is an imperfect product, sitting down and thinking new products are almost never perfect, by the end of those 2 hours, I'm going to have much different results, right? So we have to identify the places where our thoughts are stuck, and we have to move our thoughts so that we move our results. So I hope this is making sense. It's actually been a whole half hour, and I wrote down 5 other models for common network marketing thoughts. But I had no idea it was going to take me so long to describe that one model. So I hope that it makes sense. There's so much more work we can do here. But in essence, whatever thought it is that has you stuck, and I'll just give you an example of some of the other thoughts. So there's too much to keep track of. I'm overwhelmed. You can shift that to someone is ready to hear what I know so far, and that's going to change the way I act. Another thought might be, people will think I'm in a pyramid scheme. You can shift that thought to, I am a business owner. Another one about inviting would be, they will probably say no. If we sit down and we're thinking they will probably say no, probably not going to go very well. But we can shift that thought to, there are people looking for this opportunity. They might not be on my list, but they exist out there. I believe that to be true. I'll just give you the other two. One thought is, I did this before and it failed, right? So I joined a different company and I failed. It didn't work. Or maybe I've joined 6. A new thought might be, the last company set me up for my success here. If you can believe that to be true, it's going to change everything. Another one is, I'll never make the money they are making, right? So when we compare ourselves to someone else who's doing better, who's getting more results, we might get stuck in the thought, I'll never be who they are, or I'll never make the money they're making. And a thought we might shift that to is, there will always be someone making more and someone making less. So we're just totally okay with the fact that here we are somewhere in the middle. There's always going to be someone making more, always someone making less. Anyway, I think those would have been more powerful had I been able to go into more depth, but there's a lot of content in here. I hope it makes some sense. If you want to dig deeper, this work for me really comes from Brooke Castillo and her book, Self-Coaching 101. So it's 10:32. I have overstepped my time, but until next week, I hope that you can get out there and do some of your own thought models and really shift your thoughts so that you can shift your results. Have a good day, everybody.